Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be talking about the power of our thoughts. My name is Fatma Mari, and I'm the co-founder of Bold Blue today. I'm a coach, a hypnotherapist, and also a change facilitator. And today we are super blessed and grateful for Dr. Anita to be our guest speaker today and to talk to us about the power of our thoughts. Dr. Anita is a clinical psychologist joining us with her. She's going to talk to us about her experience, and she's also going to tell us about how we can work with the power that we inherently we have and activate this power to really shape a world, shape a life that we can benefit from. And not only that, we'll be
Inshallah.
answering your questions. If you guys have any questions, please use the chat. We're going to definitely be talking to you. It's your time. You have taken the time today. I'm so grateful to have you. And inshallah, as many participants come on, we're going to be admitting them as we go along. So thank you so much, Dr. Anita. This conversation, I mean, it's one of the most, to me, is very influential. And I would like to ask you from, as an introduction, what would you say is your purpose and your message in life?
Hmm. Well, purpose in life and message for today are, inshallah, in sync, compatible with one another. Since the time I was a child, many friends and family members told me that I was a good listener, that it was easy to talk with me. And I found out that people spoke with me about things that were very, very personal. And I felt like being a listener, not only to listen, but as I grew older and went to college, to advise and to give good advice to people. Advice that's founded not only in what reflects the best of humanity, but also what is meaningful for that person at that time. So I would say my purpose is to listen to people, to try to inspire them to what is good, to what is right, to to be able to handle the emotions that they are dealing with and not be afraid of failure and learn to embrace success, however they define it.
Definitely. I mean, as you rightly mentioned, perhaps people have told you that you're a good listener, and this way it shaped your experience, what you wanted to do, your choices. And then, alhamdulillah, I got the opportunity to meet you last week, and I'm super happy, 2 weeks ago, actually. I'm super
Alhamdulillah.
happy for you to be here with us and share with us your thoughts and experiences. And today, I believe that it's one of the most relevant things is basically to really understand the power of thoughts and thoughts origination, thoughts that are swimming in our minds, and perhaps how we can use the tools to create perhaps better thoughts or better experience in general. So my first question to you would be, can we control our thoughts?
Okay, well, I need to reverse slightly, if you don't mind. And thank you for organizing this meeting and inviting me. I'm honored to be here. I meant to acknowledge that right from the beginning. You asked, well, first of all, you described it in a interesting way. Our thoughts are swimming. And oftentimes I feel like that also. And then you said, can we control our thoughts? And when you put it into that context, I had this analogy of thoughts swimming upstream, some swimming downstream, some thoughts even sitting, on the creek or rather on the shore and not even, immersed in the water yet. Some thoughts still emerging and wanting to come forward and be a part of the journey. Can we control our thoughts? We have to believe that we can. Control might be stronger than what we might want to initially embrace. But ultimately, I think that we can learn to influence our thoughts and modify them to work for us. I think there will always be an element of intrusive thoughts because as human beings, we have multiple modalities, senses that are at work, our visual, our hearing, our taste. And ultimately, all of that sensory input influences our thinking. And so we can't control the noise that's going on. We can't control the scent that's coming forward. We can't control the image that sometimes we're being bombarded with. So we might not be able to control the thoughts coming in. We can modify how we choose to react to them, how much we choose to allow those thoughts to influence us. So I think that's a more accurate answer that I'd like to give, rather than just say yes, we can control our thoughts. I'm not optimistic that we even need to do that. And let me give you one example. If we controlled all of our thoughts, we would be defensive to input. We would not listen to others. We would avoid stimuli or conversation that, in fact, might help us to grow. So we don't have to control our thoughts necessarily. We need to take them in and modify them as they best fit us.
Definitely. You rightly mentioned a lot of things here. Intrusive thoughts, thoughts that are swimming upstream, downstream, everywhere. You can notice these things going around us. And perhaps the ability to use influence our thoughts and embrace the intrusive, embrace the others, not necessarily resist them. Because I believe from my own experiences that when I experience resistance, it persists. There's a saying that says resistance is persistence or something like that. So
Mhm,
I do believe that we have different polarities. There are
mhm,
polarities in the world, the day and the night, the good and the not so good. A lot of things happen. And here in this, the first picture, I would say, I've purposely put past and future, beliefs, behaviors, and I left the two circles empty because people could include anything when it comes to your
mhm,
thoughts. Your thoughts could be made out of your past experiences, your conversations, your future dreams, and even perhaps sometimes worries, your beliefs and your
mhm.
behaviors. Because when you change your beliefs, your behaviors also change. And what do you believe also could be perhaps, we could point out to other things here?
In terms of uh, completing your diagram and putting in some other
Yes.
ideas,
Yes.
well, something that I've been a part of in terms of working with some clients and reading and experiencing myself is this whole idea of forgiveness. Now, I know that forgiveness is trendy, much like mindfulness and all these other terms that are being widely used today. What I want to share with you and with our listeners and myself as well is research that's been done on forgiveness, which we don't hear a lot about. Um, so I would look at the power of our thoughts and using maybe the intrusive negative thoughts, using some of our past experiences, using the behaviors that we're experiencing, and noticing how forgiveness actually influences all of those different elements. So, the power of forgiveness. Some of the research indicates that, for example, a person has experienced a negative event. Um, Co-workers are unjustifiably targeting that person, rumors, hasad, jealousy, all kinds of events, or negative interactions with family members, parents, siblings, neighbors, whomever. What we have found out that even though some of the events are really unjustifiable, the person is maybe even being abused in a physical way or in an intimate relationship. They're being abused by a spouse or something to that effect. Research indicates that you may not forget what has happened to you, but when you forgive that person, you really are doing justice to yourself. the power of your thoughts, the power of forgiveness can help you to not only feel better, your behavior can also improve. And so I would put in the diagram forgiveness. It's shown that if you just rehearse forgiveness, you don't even have to be face to face with the person who you feel like has abused you or mistreated you, or you don't have to confront them. You don't have to have a confrontation. In fact, you want to avoid a confrontation. You don't want to feel the fire. If you're angry because someone has treated you in a rude manner, unjustifiably so, there was a time in psychology that we used to say, catharsis. You should go and get out that anger. You should express that emotion directly to that person, or, punching bag or something to that effect. Do something to get out that anger. But if you think about that, what that sounds and said, your heart is beating fast already because you're angry. You're feeling uncomfortable. So then to take that energy and use it in an aggressive way, even though you're not directing it at the person, maybe you're just exercising it off or whatever you might refer to it as, it doesn't help you one bit. What does help is to sit back, relax, and just imagine yourself forgiving that person, telling yourself they're a human being. Take their perspective. Maybe they were jealous because you did a fantastic project and they wish they could have done it. Maybe a relative is jealous because a parent or another relative is showing more favoritism to that person and not to them. Take their perspective, try to understand their perspective, forgive them for whatever they've done to you. Your physiological response is much more improved. Your heart rate goes down, your pulse slows down, you get that feeling of comfort and peace. So the power of our thoughts, just thinking about forgiving people, has a positive impact on your behavior, your future. Optimistically, you look towards a brighter future because you're not carrying that baggage. You're not carrying that anger with you. You don't forget what that person did. And you might even try to advocate for others in similar situations so it doesn't happen to them. But you start to not have to carry it around with you. You humanize that person. You don't see them as an evil, wicked person who did this to you anymore. That's initially how you feel. This is a human being, you say to yourself, who's made a lot of mistakes. What they did to me was wrong, and I would never want that done to anyone else. But you let it go and you move on because the past has already occurred and you need to move on without that baggage. So I would say forgiveness. I would put forgiveness there, and imagery, the power of imagining things that the way that you want it to be. All of that has a significant impact on all of those elements that I think you've put in your diagram.
Definitely, 100%. Forgiveness allows us to move on and really create a future from the present moment that is not necessarily linked to that future, to that past incident.
That's
And
right.
imagination, as you said, I don't really have to go and talk to that person. Perhaps I could imagine that I've forgiven this person and then just imagine what can happen afterwards. I can pretend. Sometimes when people pretend something, it feels different because if someone is still in touch with that feeling, perhaps it might be easier to pretend that things are moving on the way I want them, to pretend that perhaps
Mhm.
now I've released all these past experiences and now I can create a future that is based on the learnings from the past
Mhm.
behaviors and perhaps new connections, new situations that will help me live a life that I'm more in tune with. So
Mhm.
now, as you mentioned, that our thoughts are made out of many things, right? And these, what we
Mhm.
did mention earlier, is just some makeup of the thoughts. A lot of people, when they talk to me, they tell me there are so many things happening inside my mind, or there are things. And this diagram, to me, it shows that. Um, there are many questions and there are many
Mhm.
connections, and perhaps we don't necessarily are we're not consciously aware of some of the different intrusive thoughts, how they came, where they came from, or perhaps our current thinking. Someone might think that they are thinking so much, but actually there is a huge space in our mind that is constantly listening
Mm.
to other things. And perhaps you notice this when you are in a crowded area and someone calls your name, you would look at them, even if you were in another conversation. What part of you that was listening? That's the space that is always there with us, listening to everything that we have. And also, Dr. Anita, I would say that there are many people who say, change your thoughts and then your world will change. What
Mhm.
do you have about this saying? And we're going to include right now the benefits of using thought journals.
I think that I tell my daughter all the time, she's involved in sports, and I try to transition from sports to real life because that's what it's all about. We have an expression, if your mind can conceive it, your body can achieve it.
Yes,
And you hear athletes always using that type of expression to motivate themselves when they're engaged in performing. Just imagine that you're going to make that goal, or imagine you're going to make that basket. If your mind can conceive it, your body can achieve it. When I look at this, change your thoughts and you will change your world. To me, these statements are synonymous with one another. To me, change your thoughts, that is, adapt a positive attitude, adapt a can do mentality, adopt the attitude that I'm going to get past this. Whatever has happened to me has happened to me. Again, I forgive that person and I am moving on, because that space that you've talked about that's always listening, it's listening and waiting for guidance and direction. And it's a huge gap of untapped potential in us that we're not channeling because we're busy being pulled down and chained by the negative incidents that are going on around us. So it's normal, it's normal human nature to be distracted and to feel sad and to be bombarded by the negative things that are going on. But change your thoughts and you will change your world. And in fact, when you change your world, your perspective, your thinking, others say, "What's wrong with Fatma? She's changed." Well, if you've changed, I can't treat you the same way, because as I can no longer anticipate what you're going to do or what you're going to say. So I have to modify how I interact with you because you've changed. So you would change your world because you will also change how people around you respond to you. So I think that's very powerful.
definitely. And also emphasizing on being aware on what are your thoughts. Really,
Hmm.
to me, I believe that it's amazing when you can imagine things and then your body believes its possibility and then you can achieve. In
Hmm.
sports, in a lot of other activities, it's very good to create it in your mind. I've heard
Hmm.
a lot of conversations, discussions, interviews with athletes. I've heard a lot with, Muhammad Ali, when he used to say that I am the greatest. This is his thought about himself. So
That's
I am
right.
the greatest, and this is what I'm gonna do in this game, in this and that challenge, this effect. And you believe, I believe I can see the potential of people from the words they speak.
Exactly. Exactly. It's often said that the body doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy, that your bodily responses can be the same. Your body can respond in the same way. And just one second, I've got to just make
Okay,
sure I maintain some power here. Thank you. And that's something to consider, that if you, again, back to forgiveness, if you imagine yourself forgiving someone, your heart rate lowers. Your heart, your mind is just imagining that you're forgiving that person. You're not having a face-to-face conversation with that person. And so if you can train yourself to be aware of your thoughts, as you've mentioned, a thought journal, for example, first identifying what thoughts you're having that you want to try to change, that you want to try to modify, because we do have thousands of thoughts that are coming in at any given time. And start to identify which ones you need to change. We might call them the negative thoughts, the automatic negative thoughts that pop into your brain, and you'll know when they're the ones that you want to target, because you'll get in touch with the emotion that's connected with those thoughts. Like, when I think that, how do I feel? How does it make me feel? So to get in touch with those thoughts, first of all, and try to jot them down, and over time, look back at your list, your thought journal, and say, this thought continuously causes it, or yeah, I relate it with this emotion, and that emotion I find to be very bothersome for me. And I don't want to feel like that. I want to reduce the impact of that emotion. So then you go back to your thoughts, identify what's going on when you have those thoughts, and begin to challenge whatever beliefs or whatever thoughts that get connected to that thought that contribute to you feeling the way that you do. And then you'll begin to really understand and feel the power of your thoughts, and in fact, how it impacts your emotions and your behavior.
Definitely. And I believe that when we take responsibility for our thoughts by really looking at them, we can create a better version of ourselves. Because, see, I believe that I am experiencing this version of reality based on my thought quality. And
Mm-hmm.
when my thoughts changed, my experience changed. It could be better or it could be not better. Like, I could be experiencing good things at work, perhaps maybe at home not so good, but I could also change that by learning what is it that I do at work that is different than what I do at home. Because
Exactly.
the same person could be experiencing different polarities with different aspects of their life. For example, if I'm really good at my workouts in gym, I do a lot of things, I'm always on time. But then when I want to meet up with my friends, I sometimes, I'm late. I don't show up on time. But that's not. I wouldn't say that that is my character. That's not necessarily my character, because I
Mm-hmm.
could be on time when I've, like, booked a session at the gym, perhaps, or booked a session with someone, and really be that one. And I also remember the marshmallow experiment. So when I remembered that, I believed that it depends on what is the temptation that is
Mm-hmm.
influencing my reaction or my behavior right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Motivation. Yeah.
knowing these things changed my behavior with myself, changed my thoughts, helped me to track my thoughts. There is a technique also that is called, I think, copying your thoughts. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
perhaps I'm thinking a thought and then I intentionally think this thought again by becoming the originator of this thought.
It's pretty interesting. I'm not quite sure exactly what you meant by the last part of your expression, though, becoming the originator of that thought. Could you expound on that just a little bit so
Yes.
I'll be clear?
Yeah, definitely. So you did mention earlier that sometimes our thoughts, they come from, like, intrusive thoughts, right? They
Mm-hmm.
come and they do some things, they make me feel a
Mm-hmm.
certain way.
Mm-hmm.
When a thought,
Exactly.
I I make myself aware of it, and then I become the originator of it instead of it just intruding in my space.
Exactly. It's you actually like embody the thought. You actually embrace it. And when it's a negative thought that someone has provoked your thinking because of maybe things that they've said to you over and over again, that you're a failure, you're useless, you're too skinny, you're not beautiful, you're too fat. Yeah, we incorporate those statements into our thinking, and I think you're absolutely right. We do become, we own it as if it has originated in our own appraisal of ourselves. And that's when it's really, really damaging, because when that person is gone and you're not even no longer interacting with that person, the negative interactions, the negative things that they've said, the thoughts that you have incorporated into your belief system about yourself or others, they're with you. And that's when it's damaging, you know. And we there was one psychologist, he calls it stinking thinking. You know, you become your own self-critic with this stinking thinking, but he doesn't call it stinking, he calls it stinking thinking, you know. It's just these
Yeah.
ugly thoughts that have been incorporated into your own appraisal of yourself, your level of self-esteem, and you become, we embrace them so strongly that we forget sometimes. That's one reason people come to counseling. Unfortunately, Fatima, they come because they're like, I'm stressed out, I'm depressed. And I don't want to feel this way. And when you explore their history with them, sometimes they identify experiences that they've had, and they go, wow, maybe that's where the thought originated from. Maybe that's why I believe it so much, because I've heard it, or I was told it, or certain experiences. Now, different kinds of counseling would take different approaches, but it's good for people to identify all the different experiences that they have had that culminate into whatever they're whatever it brings them to counseling. You don't necessarily have to focus on the past necessarily. You can if that's what the person wants, but oftentimes people want to identify what has caused this, what interactions have I had that have led me to this. It helps them to understand better how to move forward. So yeah, it's quite damaging when we incorporate negative thinking. It's, you have to balance yourself also. If you've got the other set, if you're in an environment where people are pumping you with positivity that's not balanced. Oh, you're the greatest, you're the best, you're smarter than everybody, you're prettier than everybody, you're richer than everybody, you know, you're just, you're the best. That's not reality either. And sometimes we see people in counseling who are such perfectionists that it's not healthy for them. And they say, because my family always told me I was the best, that we're the best, that I'm gonna always do the best. And then when I get 9 out of 10 on an exam, I fall apart, you know? So balance is critical.
I think
Balance is critical.
yeah, it's a great learning opportunity. I had experienced this myself because
Mhm.
my dominant ways of doing things was inspired by achievement, achieving,
Mhm.
doing the best, being the best. And then one time I did this exam and I failed. It was the first time I failed ever. And to
Hmm.
me, I was like, oh, okay, I've never experienced this emotion before, so I didn't know how to deal with it as an adult. So
Mhm.
perhaps that experience to me, I'm super grateful for it. I mean, I studied night and day for months. I didn't go out for on weekends. I spent so much time and effort, and then I didn't pass. That was a great
Mm.
learning. Now, in hindsight, I could say that. But during that time, I mean, I look at it, and it wasn't a good time in my life, I would
Of
say,
course
because
not.
I did not learn how to deal with something that I would fail in, given the effort, given all these things I've invested in it. And I believe that in our lives, a lot of signs tell us that when something is good for me, when something that I'm pursuing, that I believe is good for me, and perhaps it wouldn't be the best, there are different ways of showing me that it's not perhaps my calling or my thing to do. And
Mhm.
learning that helped me become more compassionate with myself. I told myself, yes, I could be really good at some things I enjoy. Did I really enjoy that exam or that that material? Not necessarily. I was just wanted to prove that I could be part of the, it was like in finance or in that
Hmm.
field. But I knew in my heart that wasn't something I wanted to do.
And I was thinking, Fatma, not only that, but how we define success and failure is critical also. Um, Not passing an exam gets exaggerated as failure. Is it really failure, or is it just I didn't pass that exam? Should I identify what my real interests are and follow up with something different? Or what is wrong with practicing and trying again?
Exactly.
Um, you know, we, we become just so overwhelmed by that one time we did it and it didn't work and we fall apart because these days, well, it seems that research indicates these days more than others, as parents, as peers, as coworkers, colleagues, we are not reinforcing coping skills.
Definitely.
Um, it just becomes a one-time chance, and if you don't achieve it at that time, then you're a failure and run away, hide, become depressed, move on to something else. And if you look at the great entrepreneurs, they always say that a so-called failure was they learned a lot from it, as you've described.
It
They've
was their
learned
motivation.
exactly and what they needed to do to modify that product or that experiment. Another thing that psychologists are talking about that is really important these days too is this relativity, in terms of, in Islam, we're always reminded that you will always have people who are ahead of you, who are doing better than you. And if you're always comparing yourself to those who are doing better than you will feel a sense of failure. But you should always look at those who don't have the opportunities that you have, don't have the fortune that you have. Remind yourself to be grateful for what you have, and then you don't feel like you're being cheated or that you have failed or that you're not smart or whatever. You understand that things are relative. Things are relative, and we have to remind ourselves about that relativity, that comparison to others above and below. It increases our sense of gratitude.
Yes, and I also believe that when I create for myself the model of success, what is
Hmm.
success to me, then I would be able to connect with it instead of comparing success that person had succeeded in their life, they followed that path, but that's a unique experience, just like I am experiencing a unique experience as well. So it's
Hmm.
good to have models. It's good to identify what success is because
That's right.
a lot of the time we talk about these concepts, but I do know that my definition of success perhaps is different than your definition of success. And when I
Hmm.
interact with the world and see how they've highlighted the good pictures of them on social media, and then I start thinking these thoughts that are less than or better than, and all these judgments and ideas come
Hmm.
into place that we grew up learning. We grew up being, perhaps following a thought pattern. And I
Hmm.
believe that writing down your thoughts in a journal is very, very helpful because then you can understand what are the triggers, what triggered this thought. I've done this actually, and when I show people my journal, I used to have it in a book, but now I have it on my phone for easier access. When I
Hmm.
show them that, guys, I've been doing this to really understand what influences my thoughts, what triggered this feeling, because a feeling comes out from a thought. This is
Hmm.
my own definition of it. Like I would think a certain thought and then have a certain feeling about this thought. And for me to change my feeling is by changing my thought. What would you say about this, Dr. Ali?
Oh, the great theorists and philosophers, hundreds of years back, and then in more recent times too, James Lang, Lang, and other Canon Bard. These are the theorists that were debating about thoughts and emotions. And one theorist said the thought precedes the emotion. And of course, the other theorist said the emotion precedes the thought. I mean, do you think something and then that thought causes you to feel a certain way? Or do you notice emotional arousal or changes in your body and then that triggers a certain thought? And then the third theorist came along and said, it happens simultaneously.
That's
An
what I was.
emotion, an emotion is a thought that you label as fear, sadness, happiness, or whatever. And then the emotion is the experience of it. And pretty much today, the latter opinion of emotions is embraced. I wanted to just mention one other thing about this relativity in sports. Again, I look at sports because most people, we can identify with sports. We see athletes everywhere in many different activities. And this concept of a personal best. One of my sons was in track and field, and when he was much younger. And that's when I really embraced this idea of a personal best. So it wasn't, I beat that guy at the 800 meters, or he beat me, or whatever. This whole idea, and at his high school, they would post their personal best. So it was, out of all the times I've ran this event, this is the best I've done. And they would highlight that. The coaches, the other players, even if they were slower or faster, they would say, man, your personal best is awesome because it's the best you've done given, the amount of time you've been engaged in the sport. And I've really embraced that idea of a personal best. Of course, not only in sports, but in other activities of life as well. When you are your own gauge of success, when you are comparing yourself to the different bullet points that you've made for yourself, things to do. And when you can tick off on your list, I did that. I don't care if someone else didn't do it or did do it faster than I did or whatever. I'm working for myself to improve myself at a pace that's good for me. Maybe I've got more on my plate than what other people have. I tell you a quick story, Fatima. Okay. When I started grad school in the US, I had one child. And my clinical psych program was a 7-year program. And they wouldn't let us do it any quicker. You couldn't finish it in 5 years. You had to stay on track. And so every 2 years, I had a baby, mashallah, up to 5 children. And my classmates would, they would always look at me and say, you're pregnant again? you know, um, are you gonna, do you ever think you'll be able to finish? And I never had those pessimistic thoughts. I never thought I would not finish. I never even compared myself to them. I had a different life. I was on a different trajectory. I had a different plan. But as Allah showed me, I stayed determined and I stayed focused, and I had a lot of help. My husband, his mom, my sisters, a lot of help. Social support is critical for success, and we forget that. But what happened was the people who were single and had no family responsibilities beyond themselves, they were the ones who dropped out. They were the ones who, for some reason, it was more stressful for them than it was for me. So my point is, as you are doing your relative or your personal best, you really stay focused on your life and what you're going through. And don't compare yourself to other people. I don't know what they're going through. You have no idea what they're going through, and you don't want to even know what they're going through. You want to focus on your resources, your talents, your skills, and to channel your energy in a positive way for you. They looked at me every year, 9 months. And
Mashallah.
sometimes it was right before the finals. Finals was like, I think the 27th of April. Statistics, Hafsa was born the 28th, like that. But stay positive, stay focused, look for your personal best in your life.
Mashallah عليك, Dr. Anita. Thank you for sharing this story. I believe that because you've highlighted your own trajectory of how things will go for you in your life, and you
Mhm,
stayed focused on you instead of being looking at others, what they're going through, and then diverting your attention, your focus. Mashallah, yani, you've mentioned a very good story that we can all learn from. Is basically when I've highlighted a certain trajectory for myself, when I've put my own expectations about myself,
mhm,
regardless of what's happening around me, I can then start to look at the support system that can help me
mhm.
be more supported in this trajectory, be guided as well, because I
That's
cannot do everything by myself. It's with my faith in everything that can work out for me for the best. Adopting a positive mindset, being realistic, even when things are not going the way I wanted to go. Perhaps I would think that, oh, khira is basically to look at something in a positive light. Oh, this happened perhaps because I'm going to be getting that opportunity in a different way that I didn't know about before.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
understanding that we can work with our world and think good thoughts about it, or perhaps sometimes where we see others who are not working well with their world by thinking and by being influenced with other people's thoughts, perhaps
Mhm,
they're not having the best experience. And you did mention that being your personal best at everything you do, the way I do one thing is the way I do other things as well. This is very important. The way I
mhm.
speak with my parents is the way I want people outside to speak to me. I'm not going to be nice to strangers and not so nice in my family. That's what I see very common around us. However, when I really thought about it, I'm like, how come some people are so nice to strangers, but then when it comes to their own family members, they show up all kinds of personalities that are
Mhm.
perhaps not so favorable. But I do believe that we have many sides of us, and we can be our personal best in any situation once
That's
we
right.
link in with that power that is given to us from birth, our thoughts, our choices, our emotions, the way we cope with things. Perhaps I'm better at something that I can teach other people how to um, cope with. Perhaps maybe my sister is better at one thing that she can help me, she can shed the
Mhm,
light on some opportunity that I wasn't aware of because of our unique experience in life. So another thing, Dr. Anita, I would say is, so I put this image that shows the lights at the end of the tunnel, or perhaps the lights in our thoughts that could we can connect with. And the question is, um, how can people really heal the past thoughts? What is I did You did mention that, forgiveness in the beginning. That's a very good
mhm.
thing. Imagination. What else would you think that people can work with to enjoy a better experience?
Something that works for me is realizing and believing that my successes, my accomplishments are, as we said at the beginning, to benefit others. We're so self centered these days, Fatma, almost to the point of narcissism, truly, when we um, you go to school to get a degree or you get a job to make an income. Yeah, you're proud of yourself because you have that title of an accountant or a psychologist or a librarian or a teacher or what would you call it, like a waitress, whatever your occupation is, or a stay-at-home mom, whatever it is. We tend to then pat ourselves on the back about me, I am this, I am that, that the focus is on what I accomplish for myself to look good to others. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is really the light at the beginning of your journey, the beginning of your tunnel, that you acknowledge to yourself that this ain't about me, that I am not in this world to just benefit myself and to look good for other people, um, so that they say, oh, she's this, she's that. Your energy comes from how you benefit humanity, what you do for others. And so you start to tell yourself, I did it many times. I used to cry sometimes during my PhD. I can't do this. You know, I don't have the time. I don't have the intelligence. I don't have the resources to do it. I'd walk out my house in my neighborhood, and I lived in a low income neighborhood in America. And I'd walk outside, and these elderly people and some of the kids to say, "Hey, doctor." And I would look at them and I'm like, "I didn't finish yet. We don't care. You're almost going to do it. You're still doing it, aren't you?" I'm doing it for them. I had to realize that it wasn't about me. It was about what we needed, what they needed to uplift, to motivate them, to take them to that next step. So if you sit back and if you think that everything you're doing is to make yourself look good to these other, excuse me, Fatma, but phony people who really don't even care about you, okay? They really don't care about your successes. They don't care about your family. They just care about comparing me to you right now. And you, how can I look at you and bring you down? When you realize that your purpose is bigger than that, is much bigger than that. What you will achieve for generations, people will benefit from it. Then you will be raised up to a higher level. Your successes will come because your energy will be free, your creativity will be free, because you're seeing yourself in a bigger role than just nafsi, nafsi, nafsi.
Nafsi. There are many nafsi. Yani there are many nafs in the person. And the nafs that can help me become the better version to help others, to help
Yes.
rise as a whole consciousness, not only me and myself. It's how I live and interact with others. Because if you really think about it, people who are lonely are not having a very good experience, even if they have, even the wealthiest of the wealthiest, the richest of the rich.
That's
They
right.
are, I've interacted with so many different people in my life up until now, and I've seen that what makes this life worthwhile is my interactions with others, the
Yeah,
way I connect with people, the way we're social beings. No matter who we are, we like having others around us, and when we don't, that is the time when we experience the down and the up and the down. And I remember one lady who told me that she tried living by herself in the middle of the forest without any people. She couldn't do it because she cut herself off to perhaps, I think, experiment in that sense. But she said, she had so much abundance, she had so many good things to help
mhm,
herself survive, but not necessarily live as she felt disconnected with the world. So
mhm,
using our social connectiveness, using
mhm,
our strengths and embracing our weaknesses, just like we embrace our strengths, embracing our weaknesses can help us look at ourselves and others in a more compassionate way. I believe that this is the way where you can heal your past thoughts and you can help others heal as well. We are,
mhm,
most of us are challenged, and most of us are blessed with different coping mechanisms. And when we combine both, we rise as a whole society, and it makes a better experience for everyone. Because I also believe that the best feeling is when I'm able to give back. The
that's
best
right.
the best feeling is when I'm able to perhaps see the impact I have on others. I wouldn't say I'm the cause, because that goes back to the ego. I sometimes I appreciate the ego, because without the ego we wouldn't be able to achieve and be our personal best.
Mhm,
That's when we are balanced with the ego. But you've seen people, I'm sure, who are so much immersed in their ego personality, being the best. I am comparing with different things. But I do believe that balance in everything is good. Serving others and serving myself and serving society, you give and you take. There's always, the balance is really nice. That's what we see in nature, and this is what I believe can help us. I put this last picture to basically show people
mm,
how good it is to connect with nature. just looking at these colors and these pictures, honestly, for me, it gives me so much good energy and good thoughts, and see how things are just flowing. We talked about different thoughts swimming in our minds, or perhaps moving like the clouds, as some people say. We can definitely be the observers of these thoughts and really noting them down in the thought journals. And we can also then understand how we can guide our thoughts, how we can influence them. Dr. Anita, I would ask you as we conclude this session, what are the final comments and the final things that you want to share with the people here with us?
It might sound kind of funny, but I was thinking, if you're sitting there on that chair, you're sitting in that chair, you can look out, you can ponder the beauty of, as you've said, the water, the breeze. You can also flip back. You can flip back. You can fall over in the water. And guess what'll happen? It'll feel so refreshing, so cool, so cleansing. Every failure is not a failure. Every error is not a mistake. It's sometimes just to give you a different experience of what is around you. And don't be afraid to explore. Don't be afraid to take that chance. Don't be afraid of success. It might come to you through falling overboard or just sitting there getting sunburned sometimes, or it gets cool and you didn't take a sweater with you. That's what happens. That's all part of life. But you'll survive and you'll be able to walk right back to where you were and continue to work towards what's not only going to help you, but benefit humanity. And then we will all benefit from your being here on earth.
Exactly. And I would invite the participants with us in this call. If you guys have any questions, any comments, please use the chat to ask as we conclude this session right now. You can ask anything, and we'd be happy to perhaps shed some light on some of your questions from our own experience. As you know, I'm super grateful to you, Dr. Anita, and to everyone on this call to join us today and to really understand how powerful our thoughts are. And I also wanted to mention how, when you realize that one thought could affect the world around me, you can pay attention to this thought. Because
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of you experience thinking about someone and them calling you. Or perhaps when you put some kind of car in your mind, you see it everywhere. A lot of people are going to call this the law of attraction, and there are many laws of the universe. I do believe your thoughts do affect you and your environment. And when you want to experience, when you choose to experience a better uh, experience, you can start changing your thoughts when you choose,
Right.
because you always have the choice. What I've heard and I learned, a lot of people are so invested in their problems. Most of them, they talk about it, they think it, they obsess a lot of the time, not knowing how these problems, the investment, the time and the thought and the energy I'm putting into it, is making it grow stronger, grow
Mhm,
bigger.
mhm.
Because what you focus on grows. And as Dr. Anita said, I could be sitting on this chair, I could be looking ahead, and or I could be like, just falling backwards. And I could see this experience as refreshing, or I could be calling out for help, right? It could be
That's right.
either or it could be even many other infinite things that we're not really seeing right now. But I do believe that we have the power to influence our thoughts by embracing the polarities, by being compassionate with ourselves, by following our thoughts, writing them down. Use your current tools. These are tools, these are amazing things that we can start doing. And I also wanted to show you guys just to see how I've created this thought journal that I do every day. When I show this to people, they don't believe like for how long I've been writing this. I don't know if you guys can see, but this
Mhm.
journal goes on. It doesn't really show, but it goes on. Like I've been writing this. I started this like more than a year now, and I've been putting in the date. Not only the date, I put in what I learned about myself, what I like
Mhm.
about myself, and what am I grateful for. These are the thoughts that are influencing me in my experience here, and noting them down, and noting even the times when I'm not feeling so good. It also allows me to really look at these feelings, emotions, thoughts that make us who we are, in a better light. So as I can see, no one has posted any questions, but I really, really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much. Dr. Anita, if you have any final advice or final thoughts on this before we end this call.
Oh, no, thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation with you, and I look forward to, again, speaking with you again.
Inshallah. I mean, this work is really, I'm very passionate about it, and I love connecting with speakers, with people who are joining us. Every Saturday we have a topic, we have a guest speaker, that we talk about things that help us and help others as well in our environment. I'm constantly learning. I'm learning every day, and I love this environment. Thank you guys so much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr.
Alhamdulillah.
Anita, for being here. Wallah, alhamdulillah, yani I'm super happy to be connected with you. And
Alhamdulillah.
inshallah, thank you so much. I'm going to be posting
Inshallah.
this on YouTube. If you want to share it with others, with
Okay.
perhaps people who couldn't join us today, please feel free to do so. I'm going to send you guys the link. I have a YouTube channel now, and see you, inshallah, next Saturday.
Inshallah. Thank you. Okay. Assalamu
Thank
alaikum wa rahmatullah.
you. Thank you.